I watched the first episode of The Last of Us TV show on HBO Max. Taking a break from catching up on White Lotus right now, and I really need to get this off my chest. I mean, I already have in the past, but I need to do it again. It's like a medical condition, like a heart palpitation or something. Even though this is something I've spoken about at length before, I still feel as baffled, getting hit by fucking Land of Confusion as always. I'm not old enough to remember what it felt like reading Harry Potter books as a kid, and then going to see the movies. I dropped off with the movies around the fifth one, I don't remember that well, and all the ones after that, like a lot of other people, so it wasn't an ongoing thing. Really, if I think about it, my entire life, I've not had a lot of instances of liking something and then going to see an adaptation of it. I think I probably got into Harry Potter watching the first 2 or 3 movies when I was really little, and then I started reading the books with my brother and my mother. So in that sense, it was like watching the movies first and then reading the books. We finished the series with the books, but we went to the books to get a better understanding of the source material, rather than starting with something and then seeing the adaptation of it. It's only now that I'm realizing that I have probably never liked an adaptation of anything in my entire life. I have never been a fan of something and then seen an adaptation and thought of it as this is good media. So I can't understand it. I cannot fucking fathom the mentality that people have when they consume adaptations and remakes. The same applies to remakes. People who never played The Last of Us, or at least don't remember it all that clearly, that makes sense to me, right? The show seems good enough. I've got non-gamers I know that I'm trying to force to watch the show to get their opinions on it. They seem to like the first episode. But as someone who is intimately familiar with the original game, The Last of Us, I do not get the mental parasites people have that make them think the shit that they do. If this show is just doing its own thing, telling a totally different, its own version of the story in a similar way to how I don't know, every fucking high school will adapt a play in a different way with different sets and a different amount of energy, or this famous story gets adapted to a bunch of different films over time, like all the versions of West Side Story and such. I'd get that, but those are cases where something, the new thing that's made of the same title is trying to separate itself from everything that already existed, not conform to it directly. Again, it makes sense to make this show for non-gamers, just tell the same story in a different medium and access it, that it's accessed by different people. Of course, that's obvious, but what the fuck? I don't understand how every waking second of consuming an adaptation or a remake doesn't make a fan of the original think, this is fucking weird. I don't get what the difference is, why does it hit me so differently than other people? When I watch this, there are no technical criticisms I have in particular. The show is well directed, it's well edited, it's very well polished and stuff. I can observe it and I have no real complaints, but still, I am constantly being reminded that I cannot view it as a story. I am constantly reminded that this is not its own story, and I can just buy into it and believe in the character interactions or just follow the plot. It's being bent and forced into the script of the game, but is trying so hard to copy verbatim. I can't listen to dialogue that is almost a one-to-one direct rip from the game and think, yes, this is a scene with characters. I'm invested in this narrative, this fiction. I'm thinking about the original that it just ripped from, and the minor differences between them and what those might suggest. Even the plot. The scenes play out very similarly, but sometimes with a completely different context from the game, character traits, etc. So I can't view it as its own thing because it is copying so much, so exactly, and it's copying it's clearly intending to copy the energy and overarching scene structure of other stuff, but of the original, but it has so many differences that it makes it kind of confusing to follow. like, it's confusing me what is or is not canon in this version of the story. Because so many little details are changed or not included, so I don't know if I can look at these scenes in the same way when they're doing one-to-one copies of it. Take Joel. In the show, he's not as much of a beefcake, he's not a gun owner, he's not, like, stressed about work in the same way like in the game where it feels like he's very tired and he's struggling to make ends meet. After the time skip, it's unclear if he's as well known in the community as he was in the game, where NPCs in the street would talk about him and how dangerous he is. Near the end of episode 1, when Ellie stabs the guy, Joel and Tess don't immediately take advantage of the opportunity to overthrow their assailants like in the game. When Joel kills the guy, it's portrayed as like this emotionally unstable moment, like he just snaps, and then it's not like ruthless, uncaring professionalism like how he's characterized in the game. There's nothing in this episode that really characterizes him as like detached, emotionally distant, cold-blooded professional, you know? So as a result, these differences and omissions make it so I'm not exactly sure how I should feel about this character, because I know a lot about him. I know a shitload about Joel in the game, but the stuff I know seems to clash a bit with how the show's portrayed. So do I scrap everything I know? How do I even do that? How do I interpret it when it's being literally identical word for word? It just feels fucking weird, man. And that's just one example. The whole show is that feeling nonstop for everything. This is what I'm talking about. Like, even for the people that like it, you are watching the show and you are constantly comparing it to the original. Scene for scene, word for word, shot for shot, you are constantly thinking about the original and then back and forthing in your mind between the two. The people who say shit like, OMG, that makes total sense for this scene, it's even better, what a great change. And all the people who are bothered by it and being like, well, see, that change doesn't really seem like exactly the characters and story that I knew, that I was aware of in the past. Both of those are wrong and stupid, but it doesn't matter, because the whole concept is stupid. This is just what remakes and adaptations are like. You can't just recreate something exactly in experience. You can't just take someone who knows everything you're doing and just pretend like they don't know what you're doing and have it come across the same as the original. It'd be like telling a murder mystery story in the modern day, but you don't understand that your audience is expecting and anticipating twists. Just pretending like everyone isn't already on the same fucking page and just shoveling in the same meal. Just showing them your remake of the same shit they're already familiar with and just hoping they treat it like a story that's not just copied. So, when people say they like these adaptations and remakes, they're fooling themselves. They're not being critical. They're not looking for things to point out and say, oh, this is the same, it's copy and pasted from the original. Wow, they really captured the essence of the story. Or wow, this is not the same. I love that they made this change. It really improves it, honestly. It, like, improves the whole bit and shit like that. It's just not coming from the same intellectual place in your head. It's like your thoughts are not originating from the same rationale. It's coming purely fucking pointing out the similarities and differences and instead of treating it like a whole package. Like a fucking TV show. Like when people point out the things that they like in these adaptations and remakes, they're saying this is the same or this is different. They are using the original as the basis rather than just looking at this thing as its own product and judging big picture, is it good, does it make sense or not? It's even worse when it's a game like this being turned into a movie, because it was already a fucking movie. These scenes were already movies. They were videos with acting and visuals and audio and camera work that is highly similar, etc. Now they're just slightly different scenes following the same content, slightly different camera angles. The visual style is different because it's in live action, etc. How can I watch this scripted as hell show that is obviously trying to force to follow the scenes verbatim, but still take it seriously or buy into it as a story? It's just like constant deja vu. It's disgusting. I saw so many people saying this episode was tense or it made them cry, and like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I don't understand it. Is this another extension of that anime thing where people have infinite suspension of disbelief and can watch anime characters scream about how much they love their friends every episode for like 100 hours straight and still take it 100% seriously? Like, how does your analytical part of your brain not kick in automatically? Like, do you just need to play the game again? Is that what it is? Like you play the game once every month. If you were to play the game once every month, would you react to it the exact same way once every month and be like, oh my god, wow, at the fucking theater exploding in the sequence, like every month for a whole year? How the fuck does that work? The funniest part is that these people aren't even really comparing it to the original. I said that they are, but it's more complicated than that. When you have adaptations and remakes that people are trying to rose-colored glasses. See, they're comparing it to this cynical straw man fallacy in their minds of the original that they have to hype up how great every change or every faithful decision is to the new product for them. It's just such a weird case of like this, I have decided to praise this and so I shall mentality. Like, I was watching people say, this happened multiple times, I was watching people say, oh, that was a nice change. But what they were talking about wasn't even a fucking change at all. It was just something that they forgot was in the original. It's kind of hysterical how much I saw that. People talking about changes or additions that were just blatantly them not knowing the source material. It weirds me out. I don't understand it. My brain couldn't have... And again, like I said, I'm not criticizing the show. Like, I'm sure if I had never played the game, it would be fine. I wouldn't be... I don't think it's badly produced or anything, but like, how can you consume the same thing and like either pretend like it's a new thing or judge it? I'll get to that anyways. Yeah. Like, it's impossible for me to not feel a weird disconnect while watching media that is the same or not quite exactly the same, but it's just still trying its damnedest to just copy something that already exists. Again, like, the show is not bad, it makes sense for new people to watch it without the context, but like the fandom brain rot that happens to make people consume something unoriginal, it's just bizarre, and I can't wrap my head around it at all. Not a single thought that they have to what makes a good or a bad adaptation or a good or a bad remake has anything to do with what their normal thoughts would be of just what makes a good or bad show. It's an entirely different thought process and an entirely different rule set for judging something by that they all just kind of blindly accept, and I don't understand it. They're all lying to themselves, talking about how something is better because it's the exact same thing, but maybe one line delivery is slightly different or the lighting is from this other angle or whatever. Just watching the same scene with a sense of deja vu and telling yourself it hits just as hard as if you couldn't just replay the fucking game and get the same effect if it's the same thing. Or like it's somehow possible for you to manually brainwipe yourself into consuming as though it's fresh. It's weirdo alien shit, man. Anyways, that's all. See ya.